hockey. Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And welcome into Judd's Hockey Show. We are recording this after Declan Goff and I watched the Wild get destroyed on the defensive end by the New York Rangers in the opener last night. Yes, it was only the opener. 1 of 82. But it was not pretty. There were lots of faults here. And the good news is that the Wild plays again against the Kings, who are Owen Tuna, Fiala, and Jonathan Quick, and Anze Kopitar, and a crew that they actually can beat at home on Saturday night. Rangers are a very good, very fun team to watch. But, Declan, nonetheless, I think here's where I think we should start, okay? I think we should separate the fact of the panic of what we saw in one game, but we can't ignore the fact that the defensive effort by the Wild last night, including in goal, was absolutely atrocious. And I believe it was after the first period, something that you've talked about for really the entire run of this show came to light, and that was this. You know, the Wild offensively played pretty well. Shesterkin was outstanding, and they certainly generated scoring chances. There was no question about that. And to your point, for years now, after the first period, and even into the second period, the analytics were screaming, the Wild's playing a great game, fantastic game. Yeah. We were watching it and we're like, whoa, okay, that's intriguing. But this was really the poster child case of where the analytics and the eye test have to be matched up to get an idea of what the hell is going on.
Yeah, this is where you have to marry the two. This is what I've told you before. You have to marry the two to get the best type of results. And I don't really know how anyone can watch that game and just, again, watch the game with your eyes without going to the analytics and say, yeah, the Wild deserved to win that game. Well, there really wasn't any fashion of that game where the Wild deserved really to win. Their defense held out Fleury to dry on multiple occasions. Now, if you flipped the goaltenders, if it's Igor in net and not Fleury, does Shesterkin make a few extra saves that probably aren't goals? Yeah, because Shesterkin's literally the best goaltender, I think, in the NHL. He's probably going to win the Vezina. The dude's really damn good. I think where fans sometimes fall into a trap, and I saw the one that was really floating out there, so it was expected goals added, that the Wild expected goals added was better than the Rangers. Expected goals added works, in my opinion, really well for individual players. Like Joel Eriksson Ek had a really good expected goals added for yesterday. We saw that. We saw that Joel Eriksson Ek had a good game yesterday. That line in general, I thought, played pretty well. The issue with expected goals added, when you're clutching to just that, expected goals added works really well if you lost a one-goal game. Like to suggest that, hey, you outchanced them, you lost to a better goaltender, and that's where expected goals added can kind of like give you a little bit more of a silver lining. They really did deserve to win that game. They had more chances. The analytics back it up. The eye test back it up. You lost yesterday to the Rangers 7-3. 7-3. A lopsided affair. 4-goal affair. And I believe there was an empty netter in there, right? So you want to call it 6-3? Call it 6-3. It doesn't really matter.
Was there?
No empty netter?
There wasn't. He gave up 7 goals on 35 shots.
7 goals in hockey is the equivalent of scoring 35, 40 points in football, okay? Like giving up 7 goals and losing by 4.
Yeah.
There is no analytic that you can use to back up the Wild's performance yesterday. It was bad. Defensively, it was really bad. Offensively, yeah, it was okay. They went up against the best goaltender probably in the NHL. Defensively, It was horrible. That's where you cannot just clutch to the statistics of a spreadsheet and say, oh, they deserve to win. No, they didn't. You got to marry the two together.
Now, what I find to be intriguing about the game, too, is this, and I think this is part of the problem for those who were panicking. And you know what? I don't blame you. It's sports. I mean, it's fun to panic. Where I think we start is this in goal, right? Because the goaltending for this team and the fact that there is no question that Marc-Andre Fleury, who's 37, who's going to turn 38 later next month, is going to be the primary, at this point, goaltender, has people concerned. Because he didn't have a great year last year. He played a lot of the year with a terrible Blackhawks team, came here and, played pretty well, but then the playoffs came and he was not good. And so I think what we saw last night, and I'm with you, and as Everson said post-game too, Marc-Andre Fleury was not, it's not like 7 goals and they're all your fault, dude. But nonetheless, You're watching Shesterkin, who's outstanding, make these great saves, and Flower is definitely scuffling. I think the thing that shocked me most, though, was just the defensive effort. And the goal that, if you go back and watch it, and I saw it floating around on Twitter decks, and it's the perfect example of what went wrong last night, is the Kako goal in the third period by the Rangers. It came at 5:46 even strength. And Kako is literally down low in the Wild zone, skating around, like around the net, untouched. Eriksson Ek, that line is out there. So, like, this is not the line that you expect to get exposed like that. And he scored relatively easily. We can debate, I guess, if the puck should have been stopped by Fleury, but the fact is he never should have had the puck for that long. Brodin was a -4. Yeah, Zuccarello -4. Kaprizov -4. Kaprizov. So that's what shocked me. What shocked me was the overall. I mean, that's effort and that's playing smart.
Yep.
And that's what really surprised me is that in your home opener, you looked that poor in an area where if you're not good, you're going to be in huge trouble.
Yeah, and it stinks when you start the season off with a lousy performance like that. You allow 7 goals. Your top line wasn't gelling. Your best defensive defenseman in Jonas Brodin had arguably one of his worst games of his career, at least eye test wise. It stinks when you start the season off like that. Yeah, it's game 1 out of 82. I don't expect that what we saw from the Wild against the Rangers is the norm, and panic should be had by all means. Credit the Rangers are also a very good team. They have, again, for the 100th time in this episode already, they have the best goaltender in the NHL. They have a ready-made offense that can score up and down the ice. Losing to a team like that, there isn't much of a shame. It stinks when it's your home opener, it's your season opener. Yes, it's a black eye. It's a kick in the groin. We can use all those adjectives if you want. But in general, the Wild didn't deserve to win yesterday. They get a chance to clean it up. They have 3 more games left on the homestand. But I'm curious what adjustments potentially are made if things continue to look poor throughout this homestand. You saw Dean Evason yesterday put Marco Rossi up on the top line with Kaprizov and Zuccarello because he basically didn't want to get any of his fourth line wingers ample opportunities when you're down multiple goals in the third period. I applaud that. So what type of adjustments I think are made, again, when adversity hits? That's what hurt Dino in the playoffs. So what type of adjustments can you make in game when you have to get changes?
Yeah, and I actually went home after we were in attendance at the X last night to watch the game, and I went to ESPN Plus, God bless it, and watched the third period of the Kraken and Kings to sort of, scout the Kings. Let's be honest here. I mean, you got to scout. You got to do that. Todd McClellan, the Kings coach, in a game in which the Kings lost again, at one point in the third period, had juggled every line, like looking for a spark. And I'm going to tell you right now, so something that's sort of, and look, I get it's one game, okay? But I think what we're talking about here, the more thought I gave this, we're talking about things that we didn't see last playoffs or concerned us, right? Like goaltending. We were concerned, oh my God, and then nobody played well on defense. That's not exactly a comforting thing to watch. To what you said about adjustments. So McClellan juggled at one point every single line. Now he put the top line, which I believe is Fiala, Kempe, and Kopitar back together. But the point being is he was looking for, to use your word, a spark. Ryan Hartman, in my opinion, had a terrible game.
Oh, he was awful.
He was absolutely, and he was a -3, so he actually missed one of the goals that Kaprizov and Zuccarello were on for that the Rangers scored. But he was terrible. And I'm not advocating after one game moving him off the first line, but I am saying this. When you were playing like you did last night, and he's playing like he did, Marco Rossi, in my opinion, on the fourth line, doesn't make a lot of sense. He played 10-24, okay? I want to see him play more. And I like the fact that Dean eventually bumped him up at one point, but like we're talking about, that was just like for a shift here, and then Hartman was back, and then, I wouldn't have been adverse to saying, you know what, Ryan Hartman's having a terrible game here. We don't have any obligation with him playing like this, to have him on this line for the rest of this game. Rossi's going to play first line. And here's what I really don't get. Are we really going to be married to Sam Steele on that Boldy Goudreau line? I mean, there's a ton of center wiggle room there. That could have been Hartman for the third period. I mean, got to be honest here, Dex. Not sure about your thoughts on this one. But if we get to a period and Sam Steele's on the fourth line, Judd ain't going to freak out. So I think I would have liked to seen a little bit more commitment to Rossi in that first line last night, because with the way things were going, were they really going to be that much worse defensively? They were already hemorrhaging up to 7 goals. Yeah. So that's where I'd like to see Dean be a little bit more proactive. And look, if Ryan Hartman doesn't play well, I don't think you have an obligation to him to be like, yeah, but he's my first line center. It doesn't mean that he's lost the job forever. But last night, I would have liked to seen Rossi get an opportunity in the entire third period to center Kaprizov, Zuccarello, and you know what? Change things up.
Yeah, even Rossi was able to get some power play time yesterday. He played 1:34 on the power play. The Wild had 4 opportunities. So he had more power play time than Hartman, Goudreau, Foligno, which is encouraging for a rookie. So he was being put in situations where he could potentially be more successful and utilizing his skill more. But in general, he only played 10:24 yesterday. So if things aren't going well, and look, Ryan Hartman, in my opinion, was a bit of an overachiever last season.
Yep.
He had a career year, and I think he's trending in the right direction after being basically a fourth line, bottom 6 player for the first 6 years of his career. But Marco Rossi has the legit skill and pedigree that suggests that he's going to be your top line center one day. So if you're losing by multiple goals to a very good team, I should say, in the New York Rangers in the third period, try out Marco Rossi. And Dean did that for a bit. And you may as well give the kid a chance to see if he can be your first line center instead of playing with Connor Dewar and Brandon Duhaime, who, are, again, they're fine. They're Jags. They're workers. They're solid dudes that are good role players, I should say, on the fourth line. Yep. But if in this instance, you have to also give Marco Rossi a chance to be potentially a top line center and play with the best possible wingers in Kaprizov and Zuccarello.
Yeah. So to your power play point, so the first power play last night was Eriksson at center, Kaprizov and Zuccarello up front, Addison and Boldy at the points, and we'll talk about Boldy in a second. The second power play was Rossi at center, Foligno and Goudreau with him up front, Hartman and Spurgeon on the points. And so, yes, I like the opportunity and it makes sense, that Rossi's going to get on the power play. I don't think he was capped here to play fourth line. And to what you're talking about, too. You didn't keep him here to play fourth line with 2 guys who are hard workers. Right. The 2-on-1 that we saw last night that involved what I think it might have been a shorty, I forget, but that involved Duhaime and Dewar was doomed from the second that the puck came loose and that they got it, not because they don't work hard, but because they don't have the skill to score that goal on Shesterkin, and I don't even think that they eventually got a shot off on that play.
I think your exact words were, that's the equivalent of you and I going in on a 2-0 against Igor Shesterkin. And with all due respect to Connor Dewar and Brandon Duhaime. By the way, I'm Dewar. He's the 5'10" guy. Dewey's more the 6'2", bigger guy. So if we are indeed those guys, I am more of the Dewar in this situation, Judd. I don't know if you take any offense to that, but I am Connor Dewar in that situation.
No, dude, you can have whoever you want. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to try to score goals. I'll just fight.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
on to Boldy. So let's talk about the good.
Yes, he was good.
Matthew Boldy, and I talked, we actually talked about this with Bill Guerin when he joined the show.
Friend of the show.
It was last week or 2 weeks ago. And Boldy looks bigger, stronger, more confident. And keep in mind, too, he's coming off a really good, shortened, because he was not here at the start. In fact, he got hurt in the preseason last year. But he's coming off a really good rookie season. 2 goals last night, a +2. Sam Steele was too. So I'm not saying Steele played bad. I'm just saying I'm not sure.
Negative.
I'm not sure he belongs on that line full time. But Boldy, to me, I love this kid. He's becoming the type of player who we certainly hoped Greenway would at one point, Coyle would, and these guys are hard to find. They are, because he can be physical. He has got skill. That second goal that he dragged around Shesterkin
Oh,
is gorgeous. Like
yeah.
that is he
Not,
made it look simple. It ain't simple.
not many.
I love that.
Not many players can do that to Igor Shesterkin. There aren't many players in the NHL that can undress him like that. What I like too, and by the way, Judd's Hockey Show was allowed back in the locker room for the first time in 2.5 years yesterday. So as much as we love to brag about who we are covering hockey games, we haven't been able to go in a locker room in almost 3 years.
Because the media couldn't.
Because the media couldn't.
Like we weren't banned.
Yes,
like,
no, shockingly, I know
like
there's a lot of people
banned.
that think, how did Judd's Hockey Show get credentials in the first place? But we were actually allowed in the locker room for the first time in almost 3 years, so the smell of jock straps and hockey pads was great to smell for the first time in a long time. But what stuck out to me was Boldy, who was one of the players that was available in post-game interviews yesterday with the media. And, you know, when you lose getting an ass kicking like that, you're not going to get any good quotes, and nor should you, honestly. But what really stood out to me was Boldy seemed just absolutely pissed. And everyone seemed pissed, but Boldy seemed pissed. Boldy had a good game. Our buddy Chris Long tried to throw in the classic TV softball. Hey, 2 goals for you, right? Like, it's got to feel good. No, I don't care about that.
No, he said, I'd give him back in a heartbeat.
I'd give him back in a heartbeat. That to me, that's a character guy that
you know what that is.
That this team didn't have before.
That's a guy that could someday wear the C, is what that is.
Oh, okay. I think you had a very other interesting motion there, and I couldn't really tell what the hell you were trying to say.
Captain.
But yeah, 2 goals, and the second one against Shesterkin. Not many players can do that. Yes, he is. I know there's for whatever reason some victory lap being like Matt Boldy never needed Kevin Fiala. It's like both of them are very good players and they can be individually great in their own right. But I do think Matt Boldy year wasn't a fluke either. Yes, last year, and he's going to have a damn good season this year for the Wild.
Kaprizov was a -4, but I will say this: there were times again where he was fantastic.
Oh my God!
That is so. I'm not saying defensively he had a good game because he didn't, obviously, but you know. Plus minus at times, Dex, can certainly be
deceiving,
misleading and deceiving.
Yep.
Kirill Kaprizov, especially, I thought in the first 2 periods, did some marvelous things again. In fact, it was sort of weird at times. There were shifts where I wasn't sure the rest of his line had shown up completely. Now, Zuccarello came on. Hartman, unfortunately, did not. But early in that game, Kaprizov made some great plays. The one where he drew the cross check on, I believe it was Lindgren, was absolutely just like it's a small thing. It's not like a sexy play, but 1, it shows his strength. 2, it shows his determination. And 3, it shows his ability through those things to draw penalties.
I don't believe every player gets that call either if you're not Kirill Kaprizov. If Sam Steele takes that cross check, I don't know if they call it. I'm not trying to say that it wasn't a penalty. But Kirill Kaprizov draws that type of attention on him because he's a superstar now. And the Wild haven't had a player like that commands that type of presence. Zach Parise in his heyday will always be someone who worked really, really hard and got in the corners and got in greasy areas. He didn't have the natural puck skill to undress a Shesterkin or to draw the attention of defense. And I, you know what? Zach would tell you that as well. Anyone who watched Zach would tell you that. Kirill Kaprizov has this absolute lore about him that I'm sure the Rangers had probably a game plan. That the game plan is with Kirill Kaprizov, shut down Kirill. Can the Wild beat us? Can you shut down the superstar, and can the rest of the team beat you? And there were moments last night too that you saw him just skating and the oohs and ahs. It's great having the crowd back there because you finally get to see when he has the puck. It's can't miss hockey, and there aren't many players in this sport. Even from a common sports fan, let's say you're not a diehard puckhead like you and I. You're just some Joe Schmo who grabs a light beer and goes the X to watch a Wild game.
Oh, that's a mistake.
You can watch Kirill Kaprizov and be in awe because you are just in complete shock that this guy can do these things on the ice. That's the type of player he is.
Now, despite the fact that I talked about earlier in the show that Eric Sinek and his line were disappointed me greatly on the Capo Caco goal, in which he basically was untouched and scored. Eric Sinek had 8 shots last night.
Yeah, he had a good game.
8 shots on goal. And again, I will say this. If I had to pick a Wild player who 100% showed up for the majority of that game, he did. He drew penalties. He somehow got called for one when he drew one, and I have no idea how because he got absolutely obliterated, I think, in the goal crease. But He drew penalties. He had 8 shots on goal, and I loved the fight. I don't know. So the Foligno Jost with Greenway out, Eriksson Ek line might be a little bit more of a chemistry work in progress because of Greenway's absence. But Eriksson Ek's game, I absolutely, for the most part, loved what he brought.
I thought Ek and obviously Boldy with the 2 goals too, but I thought Ek and Boldy were the most noticeable players in the ice in a positive way last night in the loss. If you want to take the silver linings, which we love to do in Minnesota sports, Ek,
we're breaking down the film here. We're breaking down the film. They're going to break down the film.
We're not going to come on here for 20-plus minutes to break down a loss and just talk about completely negative. We're on a 5-6 minute rant here. We're talking about the positives, okay? Yeah, I thought Ek looked really, really strong last night, and that's a guy who has just gotten so much better year in and year out.
Yes.
He unfortunately had the Brock, because they passed on Brock Besser, they took Eriksson Ek, and I think immediately that was looked at like, how could you have done that? Brock Besser's this great scoring forward. Now that it might have been the right decision to make to take Eriksson Ek over a guy like Brock Besser. So he's closed that gap. He's worked his ass off. I've been really impressed with just his development overall. I would say, him, Boldy, Kirill to a degree. I thought all those 3 guys probably stood out the most in the loss. And Tyson Jost had some moments too that I noticed him. He didn't have the strongest of games necessarily, but I still like that they're giving him a shot to play meaningful minutes. He deserves that.
Kings here on Saturday, Declan Goff in the first 2 games. Playing on that top line, your friend, your favorite player of all time, perhaps, Kevin Fiala. 2 games played, no points, -3. He's averaging 17:10 of ice time. Will he break the drought, the goal drought, too? I don't care about a potential apple. Will he break the goal drought here on Saturday night? Kevin Fiala.
I think he does. Fiala's a streaky player, so it doesn't surprise me. He's got 2 games where he's logged 17-plus minutes and still doesn't have a goal yet. Once he gets hot, we've seen it for 4 years. It's unstoppable. Mm-hmm. But yes, I do think Kevin Fiala comes in with those shiny helmets that you love so much, potentially. And
they weren't wearing them last night. I hate those things. They look like the Tin Man.
I have no problem.
R2D, they're or C3PO. They're awful.
But I do love the purple. I love the old purple Kings with the royal crown. Though those are
Marcel.
We are not a jersey loving podcast. That's not our podcast. But I do. Those are on
speak
my.
Speak for yourself. I am.
Mount Rushmore.
I love hockey jerseys. I love hockey jerseys, and those are fantastic. Go today. YouTube. Watch clips of the Triple Crown line. Okay, the Triple Crown line. Dave Taylor, Dion, Simmer. Unbelievable. Great jerseys. Great
not Bill
production.
Guerin. Yeah,
great production. 1980s hockey. You gotta watch it. You gotta watch it.
All right. Guerin, okay.
All right. I think we've done enough damage. We will be back soon, though. Now that Judd's Hockey Show, we're rolling along. We'll be back soon.
Back, baby. All right. Hit the subscribe button for daily Minnesota sports entertainment on this YouTube channel. As Judd said, this is Judd's Hockey Show. We break down Minnesota Wild. So if it's the first time you're discovering us, hit the subscribe button. Daily Minnesota Wild entertainment and pass, shoot, score.